is exciting. Out and about like a big boy.
From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. We are now in week 4 of self-isolation, and my eating habits continue to decline. Yesterday's lunch was a pound of raw cookie dough. On today's episode, how to distinguish between a joke and a cry for help. And now, broadcasting from the churn, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
I like the idea of you just sitting there, fistful of cookie dough, like in the tube. Like, not even, like, pulling off the wrapper, just, like, bites, and, the Nestle wrapper just hanging off.
No tube. I just get the package, and then I break them off.
Has the pre-cut pieces.
Yep, and then I just put them on a plate, and I just sit there
Oh.
You put them on a plate!
I do.
You prepare the cookie dough!
Little garnish. Puts a little
cilantro.
Some parsley on the side. Lights himself a candle.
Little Hershey's chocolate syrup drizzled
gets in the
over
bath.
it.
He gets in a bath. What wine pairs with raw cookie dough?
Obviously a dessert wine.
It's a Moscato.
Yeah.
I've been experimenting with different ways to make chocolate shakes.
Oh.
Every few days, I'll make SJ and I a chocolate shake.
Oh, that's cool.
And the latest experiment was to throw in some raw cookie dough.
Okay. How did
Delightful.
You can't go wrong with raw
Delightful.
cookie dough.
Yeah, that's.
I put in 3 cookies worth of raw cookie dough into it, for shakes for 2 people. And really very good.
Like
She
chocolate chip? Was it chocolate chip?
It was chocolate chunk and salted caramel.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah. No, it was good.
That's a good choice.
Damn.
We've done brownies. We've done like cooked brownies. I tell you, one big cheat code for making your own milkshake is get a piece of cake or a brownie that has gone a little stale. So like you don't want to eat that piece of cake anymore.
But that now
throw it in the milkshake.
It's shake worthy.
Oh, so good.
Because it'll get saturated.
Little chocolate cake shake.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's not a bad
Delightful.
idea at all.
You probably have to wait for it to get a little stale.
Yeah, I don't think
For
you'd
the-
want to do it when it was like fresh and moist.
Yeah, because it would just fall apart. You wouldn't
Yeah.
even taste it.
Also, it's a
probably.
waste
It'll
of
just
cake. Like you just eat
Yeah,
it
yeah.
regular.
Yeah, just eat the cake.
Yeah.
But like
With
if you have a
chocolate
piece or
cake.
2 left over
Don't
at the end of it after a few
Yeah.
days
Yeah.
of cake eating.
Yeah. And you
Then,
liquefy that
Oh,
bad
and I'll
boy.
tell you
That's a
the
great
real
idea.
secret to making a good. I've learned how to make a good chocolate shake now. Vanilla ice cream.
Vanilla bean or vanilla?
I do vanilla bean
Good choice.
and little chocolate syrup in there.
Ooh.
Throw in my piece of cake or my brownie
Yeah.
or my cookie dough, whatever. Or if I'm just doing a plain, vanilla bean, little chocolate syrup, chocolate milk. Don't use regular milk. Here's just some chocolate milk.
Oh, that's cooking with gas. I didn't know you could do that. So you're just putting it in there.
I'm just experimenting with things now, and I was like, I bet chocolate milk would work better.
Yeah.
It does.
It just saves all the time.
Yep.
Why are we doing this with the old
I don't
milk?
know why anybody's just using milk and lots of Hershey syrup.
No.
Just
skip
use
that
like
process.
a dash of syrup
Yep.
and chocolate milk.
You just get those
And you're
chocolate
good to
cows.
go.
Once you have a chocolate cow, just, peeing right into your shake. That's
Yep.
what you want. That sounds delicious. Have you guys been eating, like, takeout or, like,
No.
at a drive-thru?
No.
Me neither. This entire time, since March, 1, I have not eaten anything that was not made in my personal kitchen. Like, I won't even, like...
Oh, I've done it a couple of times.
You
But
have?
less than 5.
Okay.
I can count on one finger the times that we've done.
I think everybody's still
I think takeout
doing it.
and drive-through, actually.
I get constantly buzzed by DoorDash. Like, hey, by the way, like, free delivery. Like, also,
Well,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
we'll
The
shine your
last
shoes.
time I did it was actually leaving here last time because
Yeah, he had
you had the chicken
he had a
sandwich.
chicken sandwich last
Jacob
time.
had the chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that looks really good. So then I got one on my way home.
Jim, why are you pointing at
that's
me
it.
and saying, "Oh, I had a chicken sandwich last time," like you were here the last time?
I heard about it.
Oh, yeah. So by the way, Jim's in studio.
I'm in studio.
If he sounds a little muffled,
It's because he's a Crip now.
I am. Yep.
he's all decked
Keep
out
that blue
in,
on the left side. Yeah, that's the grip side.
Yeah, he's got a mask. He's got gloves on.
Yep.
He doesn't
he's
have a
got-
mask. He has a Crip blue bandana wrapped around
Bandana.
his mouth.
I have a train robber bandana, and I have my latex gloves, and I have my entire container of Clorox wipes.
What's the face touch count at now, Jacob?
Oh, I
it's
think I stopped at
12.
9.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And by face touch, he means touching my blue bandana and or my glasses.
Nope.
And picking my nose, but with the gloves.
And sucking on your
And
fingers.
sucking my fingers to get the syrup off. I mean, it was delicious. Thank you for the shake, but
Yeah.
I wasn't going to waste it, I don't want to track chocolate syrup.
Well, welcome back.
Yes, it's nice to be here.
Boo.
Hooray!
It's a big adjustment for Jacob and I.
Yeah, I know. Now you guys have to fucking listen to me again.
Now you're just going to know when I get up and leave.
You're misunderstanding. Jacob will still go to the bathroom.
Yeah, the only thing that's different is now you'll know about it.
Now I am aware. Yeah, I was mad because I was like, I should be like Zooming these guys. And they'll probably say no. They're not going to let me do it. So, whatever.
Yeah. It has been difficult.
I'm here.
We've had to be innovative with our tech, but we made it.
We made it work. I'm actually, on the spectrum of things we are capable of, I'm very proud of how the last few episodes turned out and like just cutting it in the aftermath, trying to make it all work. The double Bluetooth thing actually turned out to be the best solution. So it's worked, but now I'm physically here. I don't know that I'll always be, but today I am. So here we are.
We'll take it. So
back in the saddle, baby.
Got an interesting A block today.
Yeah.
This actually
block.
Hey.
All right, that's our new thing now.
Yeah.
Hey block.
Hey,
what
block.
time is it? Hey.
So this actually came to me. Laura found this article in I think it was the New Yorker or New York Magazine.
Ooh, she's
and
hoity-toity.
sent it to me.
I only read
and
Mad
this
magazine.
This is actually really interesting because we've talked about anxiety before.
Yes.
We've never talked about anxiety from the perspective of the partner of somebody who has anxiety.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a completely different
Oh,
spin
boy.
on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is coming from New York Magazine. When You Have Anxiety and Your Partner Doesn't by Katie
Harry.
Heaney.
Oh. I was a
Close.
little off.
Close.
I was really close.
Very close. So I'm not going to go over this entire article.
It's a good story, though. It kind of tells a story about what it was like to witness somebody. I think it's written from the perspective, of the person who had anxiety in the beginning. And they're talking about going to Disneyland and having a panic attack, having an anxiety attack and crying, calling their mother, I think, just to try to zero in and trying to, like, feeling embarrassed and, like, hiding it from their mate. But, like, this becoming, like, this ongoing thing in their life of, like, how do you kind of interact with your spouse or mate whenever this is your thing? Like, it's happening.
Yeah, and how the other person is affected by it.
Right.
And how sometimes they can help the situation and sometimes they can actually hurt the situation.
Yes.
And how that feeds off of each other. So another example that they were talking about in the article is the anxious person, they were going on a trip someplace and the flying made them very anxious.
Right.
And so they started noticing that it actually started creating anxiety in the other person, the non-anxious person, because the non-anxious person is starting to anticipate the other person's anxiety. So then their anxiety goes up, and then it just starts feeding into each other, and then it becomes this huge big deal. And they're just trading off anxieties.
Right.
And situations that weren't anxious before now have become anxious.
Which, if you think about it, kind of does make sense, right? Like, if
absolutely.
You think of
Oh, yeah.
the human tribal mentality is we are empathic because that's a survivor skill. If somebody else is frightened, it should frighten the rest of the tribe because maybe that was the first person to notice a predator or the first person to see a threat. And so, like, yeah, we can be, I think, affected in this transference kind of way. But if your partner is always going through this, then that's what you're dealing with.
I mean, absolutely that. And then also just the fact that if you know your partner and you know that they've got issues with depression or anxiety or anger or anything like that, that makes you very uncomfortable in those moments. So then you start to look for those moments, from the perspective of maybe I can prevent these things from happening.
You're anticipating it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now then you become hyper aware of it.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking you have more control over it than you really do. And maybe if I do these things, or you kind of get that sense of dread, like, oh shit, here we go. This is going to explode. It's going to get bad. It's going to get really ugly.
Yeah.
Right. And then sometimes that can actually feed into that person's anxiety.
Yeah. And I think people either A, they anticipate their partner going through it, and so they're constantly like on pins and needles about it. Or B, I think that they can find that they didn't used to have anxiety, but now there's some things that they actually do. Because in fairness, if you're constantly listening to somebody go through anxiety, if they're allowed to verbalize what they're experiencing, sometimes it's just a visceral thing. Sometimes it's just a physical panic attack, and like They don't know where it's coming from. They just feel like their body's on fire, and like that's happening. And sometimes, no, they're triggered. Like there is a fear, and they are inside of a cognitive distortion. They are experiencing catastrophizing and panic. And if you listen to them dump that crazy on you, like, yeah, a lot of people can hear it and go, this doesn't sound super rational. But at the end of the day, like, you're constantly listening to this, and so you're like, yeah, no, I'm kind of scared now too. Like, maybe the end of the world is nigh. Like, oh no, and
yeah,
so it affects you.
This will be interesting. Sorry, all right. So the first two big takeaways I got from this.
Okay.
The first takeaway is to try for the person without the anxiety, for the partner that doesn't have it.
Right.
Try not to problem solve. So the key is remembering that disappointment over someone's anxiety or the desire to change it won't solve it and may in fact exacerbate it.
That's true.
So this says
I'm the worst with that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
You just try to fix it.
I'm instantly like, no, you just do this.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You just do this. It's fine.
Yeah, you'll feel better. Don't worry about it.
I think I am too. I think part of that happens with compassion fatigue as well.
Yeah.
With our jobs,
yeah.
we just kind of start to run out of compassion, and then when we get home at the end of the day, it's like,
yeah,
all right, well, just fix it. Just do this. You're fine.
I'm really not an anxious person, and I don't really understand people that are super anxious. Like, I don't understand Jim's anxiety.
Nobody understands me.
And it's not...
I don't understand Battlefield Earth either.
There's very little that I say about Jim that isn't insulting, but this isn't even meant to be insulting. It's just I genuinely don't understand it.
I just don't get you, Jim.
And so, like, when somebody who has anxiety says something to me, voicing their anxiety, my instant response is just to say, like, "What are you? Why are you upset about that? Just do this, and it's fine." What's the big deal?
Yeah, no, I think that, and like, if you're wondering, like, so that first technique that the thing is talking about is, if you are the friend or partner of somebody who is experiencing anxiety, how can you help them? And it's saying, the first thing is, notice your own urge to try to fix it, or try to just respond, and like, try to not go with that first, right? Because that's usually not the problem in the first place.
And then the other issue too is just the issue with solving it. Right. So the Director of Behavioral Sciences at Ohio Health, Craig Travis.
Yeah, Craig.
Friend of the show.
Great guy.
He said in this article...
C-Trav.
Yeah, C-Trav.
That's what they called him. That's what we call him. Yeah. I don't like to throw that around.
What his friends call him.
Yeah, it's only his friends.
He says, if you're trying to solve the problem, that anxious person, whether they're consciously thinking about it or not, is going to think that they're the problem that needs to be solved. And it's not a problem to be solved, but more of a problem to be managed in terms of a partnership with both people. So you're not looking at it from the perspective of, I need to solve it. You're changing perspective into management.
Yes.
Not really solving the anxiety, but find a way to manage it.
I like that. And I guess the one note that I would add to that is, don't confuse the word solve with the word reassure. It's okay to reassure a person who's anxious. Like Nick and I's careers have had us in the same buildings a lot, and there's been lots of times whenever I'm like keyed up, I have high energy, my anxiety is lifting, I know how to manage that, I have my tools, but one of those tools is sometimes Nick, and so like I will go to Nick and I'll say, Nick, you're such a tool, and he'll say, oh, are you having an anxiety attack? And I go, oh yeah, that too. Let's talk it through. And in that moment, Nick's historic reaction is not to say, don't worry, Jim, here's what we're going to do. Though sometimes that might be part of the conversation through the lens of reassurance and perspectiving and giving me perspective to the problem. But not just saying, don't worry, I got it. Like, no, that wouldn't make it go away. Mm-hmm. Like just saying, don't worry, I've got it. Solving it in that sense is not typically the solution. Like I need to metabolize it, digest it. And sometimes there is no quick path to just make, it's not you can't like switch a light and just make the anxiety stop. Like it's a process. It has to kind of cool off. Like
you can if your anxiety is triggered by darkness.
Touche.
True.
Shit, he's so good.
Yeah.
I just feel like I learned something.
That's why he's the life coach.
Yeah.
Just been life coached.
I missed being life coached.
It's been a while since I've heard that.
You know what's funny? Because I didn't know that you guys were playing it, and then like I would hear it in post, and I'd be like, "Oh, they played the life coach jingle," and like,
you just kept talking.
Well, it's funny because one time I did, and then another time I didn't step on it, and like I'm like, "Well, how did I know not to step on that?" And it was like, "Oh, because Jacob was like giving me subtle cues through the phone."
Yeah,
he was like going, "Yeah," and he was just like kind of like making little like jokes, and I was like, "Oh, Jacob might be on a roll. Like I better just let him go." So yeah, it's a lot easier now that we're in person and I can see him touch the iPad and go for it.
And once I realized that you would listen to me.
Here's the other thing too, is like you have different ways, different techniques of responding to anxiety are going to be used for different people.
Yes.
So like the way I respond to your anxiety is different than the way I respond to Laura's anxiety.
Right.
Because your anxiety, what I tend to do
because I like to be held.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Laura does not.
No, she's like a rabid animal. She just like...
She's clawing at the crown molding in the corner.
Yeah, just get away. Get away.
She's just goose stepping around the house. Laura's still a Nazi.
So, but with you, what I do is I model calm behavior.
That's true. Yes, you do.
But that doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
Because there are other people, not necessarily
find
Laura,
it condescending.
Not necessarily. No, but like I had an old boss that she would flip out over anything, and she would just go from 0 to 10, and everything was an emergency.
Oh yeah.
And so my way of responding to her was always, okay, we'll figure it out. It's all right. Let's just stay, and I don't say let's just stay calm, but I model calm behavior.
Right.
Which she hated.
Really?
That made it worse.
Nah.
Because in her mind, I wasn't taking it seriously.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been in that box before.
So you kind of have to
Why aren't you
adjust.
getting it? The end of the world is here. Why are you looking at me like I'm a crazy person?
Like, why are you two not wearing hazmat suits?
Yeah, why just put the foil on your head? That's what I want you to do. I totally get that.
Exactly. So, okay, second takeaway from this article is the importance of creating an anxiety game plan prior to experiencing your peak anxiety.
Yeah.
So if you're in a relationship with one anxious person and one not anxious person, to actually have a game plan put in place prior to a panic attack or an anxiety attack on what are you going to do and how are you going to respond when this happens.
Yeah.
So everybody just kind of knows what their job is and knows how to respond or how not to respond prior to that situation.
And I think that this is something, so I'm really glad that this ended up being the A block.
Because,
A block.
I'm really glad because the number one thing that I have been seeing in patients has been anxiety. And like I have never DX'd GAD more times in my life. Like generalized anxiety disorder over and over and over and over and over. Like everybody's meeting criteria. And obviously it's not a lifelong thing probably. It's being exacerbated by corona. But if people used to be able to manage pretty well, suddenly a lot of people's, the bottom fell out. Like, whatever their immunity, psychic immunity to this problem used to be, it is worn completely thin. So like I'm really glad we're talking about this, but one of the things that I constantly do with my patients is I don't just try to teach them tools and tricks. I insist that they share that with their significant other.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they have a friend, if they have a roommate, if they have a mother or father, if they have a spouse, a partner, I am always like, please take this worksheet that we're working on today, and part of your homework is now to go and explain it to them. The same way that I taught you, I want you to teach it to your spouse or your partner or your friend, because this is a team sport, right? And there's going to be times whenever you might be so, attacked under the anxiety, you might struggle to reach for that tool. And like, I want somebody else in your world to also, it's almost like if you need medicine, I want them to know where your medicine is and know how to give it to you, right? Like, that's fine. So like in this case, what you're talking about with like plans, to me, that communicates like, if you have some skills, if you have some tools in your tool belt that, like when I'm going to have anxiety, like obviously I can't anticipate it, but like whenever I've been in my worst iterations of this, I'll have like 5 go-to things, like my level 1 trick, my level 2 trick, and like depending upon how serious it is, I kind of follow my little tricks. If there's people in my life, like you, whenever you and I were like the two tops of this multi-state organization, I had to be able to trust one other human with my truth, and luckily we were already friends, so I could tell you, like, hey man, these are my warning signs, like if I'm struggling, here's how I solve that. And like there were times that like you'd see me kind of step out and you'd realize, all right, like I got the con, like Jim's gonna go take a walk and like clear his head or whatever, like he's gonna come back better, he's using his tools, that's what he needs to do right now. But again, it's because we already had a game plan, we already knew that's what he might have to do from time to time, solve it, come back.
Yeah. So I knew anytime, when Jim punches a hole through the wall and starts eating the insulation, that's the sign. That's the sign.
He missed lunch.
Something's
Jim,
something's not right.
You need a Snickers. Pod Therapy is brought to you by Snickers.
I wish.
I know. Get that sweet
Actually,
Snickers.
I wish we were sponsored by Cookie Dough.
They should. They're
Just
missing
in
a
general.
huge chance.
Yeah.
Cookie Dough Corporation. The Cookie Dough lobby.
Yeah. We're in the pockets of Big Cookie Dough.
Big Cookie Dough. Pod Therapy's been working for Nabisco this whole time.
So last thought on this.
Okay.
And I kind of want to get your take on this, because the last point I think is really important to have a game plan. But my thought behind that too is to have a game plan about how you're going to respond, but not necessarily what you're going to do to try to prevent anxiety from happening.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like you have to get into the mindset of, this is going to happen, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, we gotta try to protect Jim from anxiety.
Yeah.
To just get to a point where you're like, okay, he's going to become anxious. That's fine.
That's right.
Because we have a plan and we're going to manage it.
Yeah. At no point in any of the anxiety treatment that I've ever done with any patients or even for myself has it ever included avoidance. Except, when there's obviously something that you do not profit from at all. Like, I don't watch medical shows. I don't need to watch Grey's Anatomy. It has not in any way impacted my life in a negative way. I know that doesn't help me. That causes me to catastrophize and fear healthcare things. And so I don't profit from it. So there is a choice of diet. There's a choice of mental diet. But when it comes to like how we're going to live our lives, like, no, it's not. I can't live my life constantly avoiding everything that might trigger this. And it's not anybody else's responsibility. It's always about accepting it as a lie, accepting that when this happens, you need to start using your skills, start using your tools, feel it when it happens, score it, understand it, diagnose it in yourself, address it, and then constantly remind yourself, like, this is not real, I'm just exploring it. Is it weird for me to talk like this whenever you can, like, see my glasses fogging up when I'm wearing the mask?
Okay, to paint a picture, I'm looking at Jim, and he's, like, fully covered. He's only got a slot for his eyes. He's got a mask on. He's got gloves on. Yeah. And he said, I've discovered I'm not the type of person that should be watching Grey's Anatomy. Yeah, no shit.
Recently made that discovery.
Dude, this Corona thing has provoked my anxiety really bad.
Oh, really?
As you can see.
Wait, what?
It has been rough. It has been really rough. But I've been doing really good with my skills.
Hadn't noticed.
Using my tools.
Yeah, well,
getting through it.
You took a big step today.
I did. And, I like the idea of making a plan, though. And, like, having several layers of tools that you might use. And so, like, that's true. And then, again, not keeping those a secret. Like, if you have friends, if you have a roommate, I think it's tricky whether or not to share such things with a coworker, because I think oftentimes you can just exit, you can just excuse yourself from work or do whatever you need to do. But that's been another thing too, is I've got so many patients right now that are calling out of work, and because of anxiety, they cannot be on the floor, which again kind of makes sense. Like, they're scared of getting corona, and their job is telling them you have no choice. You're going to work, or you choose not to feed your family. And this has been a really scary thing for a lot of people. And then they're just using their PTO, they're using their time off, and they're meeting with me and being like, I have no choice, I'm coming back. And it's like, we're trying to prepare those skills. But again, they might not have a workplace teammate that can help them through that. I think when you do, though, it makes a big difference. I mean, it's really nice. You're there for 8 hours, or longer a day. Like, it's nice whenever you have somebody that relates or knows what to do, and you can kind of teach them some of your skills and be like, oh, my therapist and I are working on this, and this helps. And so would it be okay to ever sit with you and talk it out? And a lot of people are like, yeah, no, happy to help. Like, and so I give people like worksheets, and then they can like take a picture of it, and then they might show it to somebody else, and it has questions on it. And that's really helpful too, because then like the spouse of the friend or the coworker can like ask those questions carefully, and like causes the person to kind of like start to analyze what's causing them anxiety and put it in perspective. Usually really helps.
There you go. Excellent.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, it's a good.
Anxiety has been coming back harder than ever, man. So if any of you guys are out there and you have a loved one that's going through it, or you're going through it, remember it is a team sport, and remember to check in on people, but don't try to fix it. Don't just tell them, oh, you'll solve the problem. Don't worry. It's not that. It's allowing them to express it, hearing them, responding. You're allowed to respond rationally, and you're allowed to respond with reassurance. That's healthy. And revisit some of our old episodes. Revisit the episode about CBT and PAUSE. It has the acronym PAUSE in all caps. It's somewhere in the catalog. That is a breakdown of those questions that I'm talking about that are really, really helpful too.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss Corona PTSD. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's THERAPRODUCER sponsor is Robert Brownie, Jr. Mint. Today's first trivia question is, which Middle Eastern river gets its name from an old Persian term meaning the fast one? It's the Mississippi. Nailed it.
Yeah,
if you'd
big
like
Persian
to join,
population.
Big Persian population in Mississippi. If you'd like to join Robert Brownie Jr. Mint and make this show possible, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm just imagining the Mississippi being discovered by the Persians.
The Persians?
Xerxes. A lot of people don't know Xerxes' middle name was Mississippi. That's where the name of the river comes from. Xerxes, Mississippi, Almighty was his full name.
I was really looking forward to finding out what Xerxes' last name was just now.
Almighty.
Almighty.
A lot of people don't know that, too. I should have been like Smith.
Xerxes Smith.
Xerxes Smith. A lot of people don't know that. That's why that last name is very popular.
All right.
Corona PTSD. Hello, Pod Therapy. This is Zach. I have a question on last episode dealing with the medical field. Do you think somebody that works directly in COVID-19 ICU, is it possible that that people doing that might be at mental health risk? I have been seeing articles about that. Could someone say for 2 months work with people on ventilators and see death all the time? And then would that cause that person to maybe have PTSD after this event is over? Can someone get PTSD from doing daily medical work on people? Thanks. Great question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Moving on.
Yeah, that was... You betcha.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Mississippi.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Yes.
I mean, we should probably go through some of the criteria for PTSD.
That's a great idea.
Right?
Yeah. So whenever we're talking about PTSD, I had this encounter with a patient this last week, and this person was ex-military, but has a lot of symptoms of PTSD, even though this person's symptoms of PTSD are in no way related to the military. They're related to the person's childhood. And I asked the person, I said, hey, have you ever heard of that phrase PTSD? Like, is this something that, because I'm really fearful of giving labels to patients if that's distracting. Like, I'm just going to try to help them. And so I was just kind of fishing to see if they had any awareness of that word. And the person was quickly like, oh, well, no, I've never been like in a life-threatening situation, like some of my friends back in the military. So, no, I definitely don't have PTSD. And I'm looking at this person thinking, this is textbook PTSD. And but there's, this fundamental misunderstanding a lot of people have in the public. PTSD is about a bomb going off or somebody shot you or death. That's not the case. So PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. We've talked about this on the show. There are multiple stress disorders. There's like 3 or 4 of them. This one we refer to as post-traumatic. There's different kinds. So a post-traumatic stress disorder is a different kind of stress disorder. Stress disorders generally have in them fear responses, that you're going to have anxiety, that you might have depression, that you might find that your behaviors are disproportionately reactive to certain stimuli. That's what a stressed human being's response is going to be. Post-traumatic refers to the events being in the past.
Right. So there's actually, within the DSM-5 diagnostic breakdown, they break it down into 4 categories.
Oh, the clusters.
The clusters.
So there's a hard one to diagnose.
It is, yeah, because you need to have something in each one of the clusters.
Right.
So cluster 1 would be stressors.
Yeah.
So exposure, right?
Yeah.
So this could be direct exposure. It could be witnessed exposure or witnessing trauma. It could include learning that a relative or close friend was exposed to a trauma.
Yes.
That could be part of it. It could be indirect exposure to aversive details about the trauma. So, like, a good example of this is a lot of... I had to give that presentation a while back, like a year ago, for the district attorney's conference.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of the things that we kind of talked about was continued exposure to stressful situations. So if you're a district attorney, you have to look at a lot of crime scene photos and stuff like that. And it's that repeated exposure over long periods of time, which would be kind of indirect because it's not something that you were there or present for, but you're
encountering the concept. Was that all of cluster A?
Yeah, that's cluster A.
And before we move to cluster B, that word trauma, let's take one moment just to zoom in on that, because when people hear that word trauma, if you have ever gone through any kind of healthcare training at all, you quickly realize that word actually has a lot of different meanings. So like in the medical field, in physical medicine, A blunt force trauma, right, or usually the association with that word trauma has to do with a body part receiving some kind of injury, right? It's somehow been impacted in a way that moves it from healthy to unhealthy. In psychology, a trauma does not have to be death. It does not have to be I saw somebody die or I saw something violent. A trauma is really anything that causes you, the human being, to experience that fight or flight kind of moment, but you find that you freeze. And it's that getting kind of jinked between the gears of these two different things, and you experience something that is beyond your human ability to language. I think it was last show you were talking about Eric Gentry. He was the therapist and researcher who had given us a lot of trauma work, and they happened to be, I think, in the A block. I actually attended a conference by him. He's an amazing, amazing presenter, and he looks just like Tommy Lee Jones. Look this dude up. Eric Gentry. Okay, you look him up. Eric Gentry, social worker. You will see. He looks like Tommy Lee Jones.
That's awesome.
He's a cool dude. I told him that, and he was not impressed, which is very weird for me. Because I thought I'd say this to him, and he'd go, yeah, I get this all the time. And I go up to him, I go, hi, I'm really enjoying your presentation.
Right. To be fair, earlier in the Patreon episode, you mistook
John Travolta.
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, for Val Kilmer.
For John Travolta.
A compliment to both men.
Are you sure Tommy Lee Jones?
Who do you think Tommy Lee Jones is?
I'm glad we're stopping here. This is a good point. Is this the guy that's the drummer for that band?
You're thinking of Tommy Lee, the drummer for...
Tommy Lee.
Yeah, not that one.
Correct.
The guy from Men in Black.
Okay.
Yes.
The black guy?
Yeah. The black guy that raps.
The rapper, yeah.
The guy from I Am Legend.
You know about the small
Tommy Lee Jones.
You know about the small talking dog?
Yeah. The black guy from Double Jeopardy. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, yeah, anyway, that guy. So I go up to Eric at the end of this presentation. I was like, hey, I'm really getting so much out of this. Like, it's really cool. And he was like super, warm. And obviously we're the participants. He's trying to be nice to us. And I said something like, has anybody ever told you look like Tommy Lee Jones? And he goes, who? And I'm like, Tommy Lee Jones, like the famous actor. He goes, oh, no. But I choose to take that as a compliment. He's a very important actor. That's nice of you to say. And it was so awkward. Yeah, and I was like, did I just offend you? Like, I'm so sorry. Nick is furiously Googling right now to see if this guy looks like
Eric
Gentry. Gentry. Great presenter.
I can't imagine being in a situation where I had to be nice to Jim.
So he's associated with like the International Association of Trauma Professionals. So
oh my God, no!
Come on, dude. Let me see the guy. He looks just like Tommy Lee Jones. Like it's the same guy.
Hold on, I got to make this.
What's
picture
his name?
Larger.
Eric.
Okay.
ERIC Gentry.
It's J. Eric Gentry.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know about the J. But Tommy Lee Jones.
Okay.
Same guy.
Oh, I can't get that picture any larger.
He's the same guy.
I'm getting him here.
He's the same
What?
Guy. He's the same guy. He looks
the
just
author.
like him. Well, I think
yes.
he's probably an author.
He's got initials behind his name.
Well, now maybe it's not the guy I'm thinking of. Like,
yeah, definitely not.
He was with the International Association of Trauma Professionals.
Yeah, no, I found him.
Just show me the thing. No, I don't think it's the same guy.
I found the guy. You know what? This guy.
They're both holding up things at me now.
That guy? Yeah, that's the guy I found. That's not Tommy Lee Jones.
That's definitely not.
No, that is the guy. But if you see him in person,
you had an out. You could have been like, oh, no, I was thinking somebody else.
Listen,
I was thinking of Val Kilmer.
Dead ringer. Dead ringer for Tommy Lee Jones.
No.
It's nothing like Tommy Lee Jones.
At the time, he definitely...
At the time, he was hunting Harrison Ford, in all fairness.
During the conference, the lighting made him look like Tommy Lee Jones.
You mean the lack of lighting?
He wore a Tommy Lee Jones mask, which made him look like Tommy Lee Jones.
Very hard to
hear.
To
be fair, he was dressed up as Two-Face.
What even caused this? Where were we?
Okay,
trauma.
I don't know.
All right, so anyway, the dude gave a presentation on trauma, and the way that he described it, which I really appreciate, it's always stuck with me, is he described it as anything beyond the human's ability to language, right? And so he was talking about, especially it not being a bomb going off, it doesn't have to be somebody walked into the bank with a gun, but if somebody did walk into the bank with a gun, you freeze, and you realize you are in danger, you realize you're in something imperiling, but you don't know what to do. Obviously, that's physical danger, but trauma can also be you had a parent that was beating the crap out of you. It could also be you were with a spouse that was constantly mistreating you and verbally abusing you. It could be you were in a financial situation or a job where you were scared you were going to lose your job all the time. And nobody beat you up, nobody shot you, no bomb went off. But you were in a situation outside of your control in which you were made to feel fear and you had no out, and it was beyond your ability to language. So coming back to the way we think about how to diagnose PTSD as we center onto that word trauma, it's good to crack the egg open and say, here's what we're talking about. It's not an explosion. You could go through all those versions of cluster A traumas just by being exposed to a situation that is scary and beyond your ability to language.
So that's cluster A.
Yep.
Is the stressor. Cluster B is the intrusive symptoms.
Right.
So you can't just have experienced trauma.
So there's
you
exposure.
have to have you have to have intrusive symptoms, which could be things like unwanted or upsetting memories.
Yes. Flashbacks.
Nightmares, flashbacks, emotional distress after the exposure of the traumatic reminders.
Yes.
So things that remind you of it.
Yes.
And physical reactivity after exposure to traumatic reminders.
Yeah.
So if you're driving down a street and that's where this happened, and then you have a physical reaction to it.
Yeah.
That could be it. But there has to be some sort of intrusive symptom.
Yes.
As a result.
And that's cluster B.
Yes.
So whenever we're diagnosing this, first we look for some sort of exposure to trauma, keeping in mind trauma is a general thing. And then secondarily, are we now seeing in the patient these intrusive sort of negative stimuli that are all mental, that are somehow reminding them of that original thing?
Right.
And I think, is there cluster C?
Yes, there's 5 clusters actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, there's a lot of them. Yeah. So criteria C is avoidance.
Yes.
So then this is going to be behaviors that you're going to put in place to avoid either thoughts or feelings or external reminders.
Yes.
So you're going to start doing things differently. You change your behavior to avoid those triggers.
Yes.
Right. Then you've got criteria D. Cluster D is the negative alterations in cognition and mood. Right. So how is it then affecting your mood?
Your perspective is bad. Your outcomes are bad. You carry yourself differently.
Right. Inability to recall key features of the trauma.
Which is very common because it was beyond your ability to language. It didn't get coded correctly in your mind. So it's all fuzzy to you.
Overly negative thoughts or assumptions about oneself or the world.
Yes.
Exaggerated blame of self or others for causing the trauma.
Stop reading my journal, Nick.
All of that. And then the last big one, criteria E, cluster E, is alterations in arousal and reactivity. So irritability and aggression, risky or destructive behavior, hypervigilance. It's a very common one.
Hypervigilance.
We see that a lot with veterans.
Yes.
Heightened startle reaction.
Yep.
Difficulty concentrating, difficulty sleeping.
Jesus. All right, so let's crack this thing open a little bit faster. The anxiety reality that coronavirus is causing, I believe the next mental health iteration that we're going to see in the months to follow is going to be the PTSD part. And when people hear PTSD, they think of it as a very big, heavy word. It's not. It's extremely common. And it isn't always the same level of reaction. Sometimes it's really, really big reaction. Sometimes it's not. Okay? Like almost all people that have addictions, we usually will discover there's a trauma history in their life. And some of how they're dealing with their PTSD is self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, right? So it's extremely common. And I believe that after this anxiety, part of the history goes by, eventually we're going to be seeing a lot of patients who are having, these negative aftershocks and negative after effects of being made to feel powerless and scared during the corona era and constantly fearful the bottom's going to drop out again. And again, they're going to find themselves doing avoidance behaviors, being hypervigilant, having these, flashbacks to peril and flashbacks to fear and bad dreams and nightmares and all these things. So that's kind of a big picture of it. So Zach's question asks, can healthcare people, because of their routine exposure to scary things like in the ICU, can they develop PTSD? Yes, but keep in mind, the way a person is approaching that scary medical situation is as a professional who's been trained to do that thing. It doesn't put them in a personal position of feeling personally afraid all the time or personally scared for themselves or their own health. You're looking at a patient who is struggling. And yes, there's blood on the floor, and yes, there's scary things and beeping noises. But you have to understand the posture of that human is quite different. This is also why, if you're interested, a lot of research has been done into the special forces of all the military branches. The special force members are much more immune to the effects of PTSD. And one of the reasons why is because they have been extremely well trained to experience these things and not like freeze, right? Because they're constantly put in this motion, routine. And so they don't find themselves feeling frozen or powerless very often, or it's just their job. They're just doing their job. They turn this corner, fire 2 shots into center mass, keep walking, don't even think about it. And like that's how machine like it is. And I think an ICU nurse or an ICU doc, even though we're hearing a lot about healthcare on the news, that does not necessarily mean that person is experiencing a traumatic impression of that scary moment, because they are trained to do it. Mm-hmm. Though, having said that, I am seeing a lot of patients right now that are doctors and nurses who are very scared because 20% of all coronaviruses across the world are healthcare professionals. Mm. So they are scared to go to work. And that is happening right now. And they are feeling scared to be forced to go to work the same way a call center employee is scared to go to work, or anybody else. So... Yes, Zach, this is something that can and will imprint upon some people. But to really quickly make this point, because we haven't talked about PTSD very much in the show, but it's something that has touched the lives of a lot of our listeners. A lot of the stories that write in reflect trauma, and I think we've talked about that. And I think it gives me a moment, since some of what we've talked about today did kind of reference some stuff. Adding to Jim's fun bingo list of mental health issues, PTSD is probably in there. And so here's an example from my storybook of like how these symptoms manifest. When I was a little kid, my mom almost died. Her blood went septic. She had a bad surgery. She was taken to the ICU. And as a little kid, I was brought in to say goodbye. I was probably like 12, 13 years old. So not that little. I had a little sister who was even younger. Grandma was flown in to basically be our guardian, take care of us. My dad was still working. And basically, my little sister was almost too young to understand what was happening. And they sat me down old enough and they said, your mother's going to die today, so you need to go in and say goodbye to her. And she wasn't cognitive. She couldn't hear me. Like, she was completely out. And so just, they had her on all the drugs to just keep her alive and all this stuff. So I obviously was in a terrified position, frozen in a bad situation, powerless, unable to language what it looks like to lose a mother and not know what to do as a little kid. She survived. Everybody talks about Jim's bat mom. She's great. So she even joins our support groups and reminds everybody that we're all going to be okay. It's adorable. So she's fine.
And she pretends to not be a bat.
And she pretends to not be. Well, that's in her human form because the Zoom camera is fixed, so she has to stay in one spot. So Mom survived, but it left this huge impression on me. To this day, and I've gotten a lot better through my own personal work, but in my early 20s, I had a friend whose mother was very sick and was in the ICU. She had a stroke, and he was a close friend, and so we were trying to be there for him and go to the hospital. And I also had another friend who was dying of cancer in my 20s and ultimately did pass, while you and I were working at the same place. And whenever I would try to go visit them in the hospital, I would find that I would have a huge response. So I'd be in the parking lot of the hospital crying in my car uncontrollably. Not because I'm sad for the person's fate, but because I am so terrified to walk into that hospital. And the smell of the sanitizer and the beeping sounds and the feeling of the tile floor and the everything, the scrubs, the nurses, every single aspect, the lighting, all of it just triggers me. And I flash back to that ICU experience at Sunrise Hospital, watching my mom die and trying to say goodbye to her. And so it causes this bad reaction. Mm-hmm. Also, a healthcare hypervigilance. If my kid coughs, if my kids fall and bump their head, if anything bad happens, it's specifically to my children, it's specifically about them, I lose my crap. And, like, for me, I'm fine. I could have, a rash on my knee for, a year and be like, I'll walk it off. But, if it's the kids, I'm like, Jesus, something's wrong. Like, what if they get hurt? It drives my kids crazy. But I'm hyper-vigilant, chasing them around all the time. Like, hey, get down off that. Get down. Let Daddy let me touch your forehead. Like, are you okay? Terrified. And, when my daughter had to spend a month in the ICU a couple of years ago, it was a train wreck for me. Every day going into that place, I would just cry in the parking lot for 15 minutes, partly because I was scared for my daughter. Sure. But also because I just didn't have the ability to go back into that place because it was a nightmare for me. Every aspect, and if you ever see me, if you ever have the unfortunate experience of seeing Jim in a hospital, I am white as a ghost. I am shaking. I am, sweating, cold sweat, terrified. My hands are usually clasping onto each other, and it's like I'm feel like I'm on death row. It is a very scary reaction, which is disproportionate to the place I'm at and what's going on around me. And it harkens back to the trauma that I experienced as a child that still continues to bubble up.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've made great progress because I am functional now. I am actually able to go to a hospital. I'm actually able to assist somebody or go visit. I've visited lots of hospitals and visited our patients whenever you and I ran a rehab.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can come and go out of hospitals, and I can do that now, but continue to be a huge fear for me that, health, something's bad's going to happen to somebody I love. That's the ongoing traumatic echo.
It's weird how for a minute it sounded like he was bragging about being able to go to a hospital now.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, I can go to a hospital.
I just walk into a
hospital.
hospital.
I don't know about you, but I can go to a hospital.
I don't like to tell everybody about this, but I can just walk on in there, go to the cafeteria, get me a cheeseburger.
Walk into more than one of them.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
Sometimes I just go from one to the other just to check in, see how everybody's doing.
When I was young, I had a lot of, I had like a larger than normal amount of family members and friends die. And I would go see them in the hospital. And I don't like going to hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody does, though. I don't think nobody likes going to a hospital to visit somebody. But I don't know if my reaction is different from other people's reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that I certainly do not like going to hospitals, and I will avoid it. If somebody isn't dying,
you're not going.
I'm probably not going to come visit you in the hospital.
Yeah. I was going to have my next birthday party at Summerlin Hospital.
I encourage you to do that.
Okay.
Since I won't be there anyway.
It's going to be like a karaoke thing. Really
wherever you have your birthday.
Yeah.
I won't be there.
It doesn't matter where it is, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, what if it's at Chuck E. Cheese?
You do you.
Yeah. Okay, fine. But anyway, so that's what trauma looks like, boys and girls. And yes, this situation can lead to it too. And it's not always a life and death. It's not always a bomb going off. It is a human being put in a situation that is beyond their ability to language, and they find in a fight or flight moment that they are caused to freeze, and then it haunts them. Mm-hmm. And because of that haunting, negativity that surrounds this, it intrudes into their consciousness. They have flashbacks, they have bad thoughts, they have intrusive thoughts, and then it causes them to react to those, which often can trigger my anxiety too. Mm-hmm. And my anxiety is sometimes a response to the trauma.
Right. All right. This is a really good question. I think part of it too, he's asking, could somebody perhaps get PTSD from doing daily surgeries on people? Well, if you're doing surgeries, you're probably a surgeon, hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully.
So it's something that...
Did you see that the governor waived the scope? Did you see my email about this?
Oh, yeah.
Governor Sisolak invoked emergency powers to waive all licensed healthcare providers' scope. So I will be opening up an OBGYN clinic and also an optometry clinic. Come on down to Jim's hair care, tire, auto lube, and baby delivery service. Oh, it's super exciting.
There are so many of those things that I would let you do before changing the oil in my car. I feel more
Jim
comfortable
can catch a baby.
I feel more comfortable letting you deliver a baby than I would letting you do any automobile work to my car.
That is a good call. I think I'd be much more qualified to catch a kid. I have no idea where the oil even goes. So.
This looks like a good spot.
Same spot the gas goes in.
You just pour it in there, right?
Yeah,
that's why it comes with a little nozzle.
That's the catch-all spot.
Yeah. The cars have evolved to figure that out themselves.
They just do it themselves, right? Just put it in the driver's seat and you're like, take care of that.
Yeah.
You handle that yourself.
You just pour it right on the engine. You just open up the hood, just pour it on there.
Yeah. That's what it's there for, right? That's what the coolant is.
It's going to smoke a little bit.
Yeah.
There's going to be a little bit of smoke, but that's normal.
That's because
the
it's
smoke
working.
means it's working.
Yeah, that's how you know the car's getting what it needs. It soaks in.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss quarantine breaking. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is Kayla Lansbury. The second trivia question for the day. In which European city would you find Orly Airport? Orly Airport. In which European city would you find Orly Airport? Mississippi.
Nailed
it. Got it. If you'd like to join Kayla Lansbury and make the show possible, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next question is about quarantine breaking.
This is a good one. Okay. I have been staying with my parents because my boyfriend works at a hospital and we live in a higher populated area. As people are taking precautions more seriously, I had decided to come home in a few days. My boyfriend is upset that I am coming home in a couple days instead of immediately. He went shooting today with his sister, her boyfriend, their dad, and his girlfriend, and is upset I wasn't there to go too. I found out half an hour before and told him I couldn't come home if he went, because 4 of those 5 people are still working in the public. I told him if I was coming home, we couldn't be around anyone, including them, and he said, then don't come home. I told him I wouldn't be going even if I was there, going shooting, and he said that was my choice. I asked questions about who was still working from where, and he says I'm a hypocrite because I'm around my family and my dad is still going to work. Yes, my dad is working in a ghost town of a building because he has to, using gloves, disinfectant wipes, not touching anything, and coming in contact with anyone. The rest of my family hasn't left the house in over a month, except for going for a walk in the neighborhood, not around people, or a car ride, which is only driving. No stops anywhere. I said, if your dad is trying to get everyone together to go shooting, how else is he not following the rules? Because my dad goes to work and does shopping once every week and a half since he's already out. I can't be around people who aren't taking things seriously, and I can't be convinced I'd be safe when his dad is planning gatherings and all of this. Any advice or words of wisdom? I understand that he's lonely, but I was going to be home so soon. I feel like he's trying to push me away. And just for clarification, he works in a diet office, so he's okay. So he's part of like the cafeteria inside of the hospital. And then she also points out like his sister and her boyfriend, they also work at a hospital. The dad's a firefighter. They're exposed to a lot of people. All right. It's a good question.
Interesting.
Yeah.
First take. Seems like more of a relationship issue than specifically breaking quarantine issue.
Oh, I think it's a breaking quarantine issue.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. This drives me nuts. Oh, this is a huge thing. This is something I'm hearing a lot of people talk about. They get really angry, and I do too. Like, I went for a walk today around my neighborhood, and my neighbors have a kid about my kid's age. They go to the same school. And sure as heck, like, as we're walking past the house, a van pulls up to this neighbor's house. A bunch of kids get out, and they all go inside the house to, like, go play with this family's kids. And, like, a family gets out, and it's like, you're breaking quarantine. Like, you just brought over, like, 5 humans to come hang out in your house and play in your yard and stuff. And, like, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. Like, there's a rule. Like, we shut down society. Why do the rules not apply to you? Like, you get to do whatever the hell you want? Like, no, that pissed me off.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
That's true. What you just said,
let's end it there. Is true. Good show, everybody. If you'd like to support go to podtherapy.net.
I think Nick was saying that this specific instance, I think you're right, that people are getting angry that other people are not respecting the quarantine.
Yes.
As they think that they should.
I think that's her beef. She's saying, yeah, I was about to come home. My boyfriend goes out with all of his family. I'm pissed.
I believe what Nick's point was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, since you're in the room.
It's nice to be in the room.
Is this sounds like there's a deeper issue here, a deeper relationship issue here than just the quarantine issue.
All right.
That's why I'm so good.
Go ahead.
I can see behind
the Matrix.
And by the way, I agree with Nick.
Yeah.
You don't even know his point.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And he said it.
All right.
And I agree.
What do you think is the relationship issue?
I think it's just there's a couple things. I think there's obviously.
Did you say this is boyfriend or
boyfriend.
Husband? Okay.
Boyfriend.
Yes, right?
Yeah,
yes.
It is boyfriend.
Okay, boyfriend. So they're obviously living together, but
in sin.
Sorry. Okay, that was not the issue.
That was Liberty. Sorry. They baked that into
Liberty University. Just came out for a second.
You deserve whatever happens. Oh, Jesus. Okay, go on.
Jim felt bad saying that as he was saying it.
Yeah, it hurt. It hurt to do that joke, guys. I did that just for the fun of it. Jim does not care.
Sure. No, but this is just the current issue or the current presentation of a larger problem.
Right.
Which I think is just that there's some jealousy issues, or just I wouldn't say jealousy issues. I think it has to do more with the perspective of how much the other person is committing to the relationship.
You're reading into this.
Think so?
I do. She's like, I am specifically pissed because here's what these people do for a living.
No, that's part of it.
Okay.
I think she's pissed also.
I think she is angry about that.
Yeah.
Yes, she is angry about
There's
that.
A lot of people
but
relate to that.
I think the thing that cuts deepest is I'm supposed to be coming home.
Oh.
You're supposed to be doing this, but you're not doing this for me.
Oh.
You're not making this sacrifice for me. And then when she pushes him on it, his response is, well, then don't come home.
Right. That was a pretty big response.
So
yeah.
I think
that's a good point.
That's a deep cut.
There's probably some cracks in the rubble here, but I see her
rubble.
point. Yeah. Is that not the thing? Is the rubble not a thing?
A foundation, maybe?
Yeah.
Is that not what foundations are made out of? Are they not made of rubble? Is rubble just that guy from the Flintstones?
Rubble is what you have like after a bomb goes off.
There's definitely cracks in Rubbleton.
Yeah, yeah.
So my point is valid. I accept your point.
Okay.
So, what was I going with
Cracks of the rubble.
Episode title.
It's too bad we don't do those. This show actually could stand a few of those fun episodes. No, but my point is, like, I think that I see her point being like, hey, I'm your person. I haven't been home. I'm coming home. There is a global pandemic. We're supposed to be, staying to, in our little space. I'm accepting the known risk of where you work. You're recreationally exposing yourself to a bunch of people that also have a lot going on. And it bothers me because I was just about to come home. You know that, and now you're upsetting the apple cart. And this is now rising to the level of the kind of thing you should be thinking about your roommate or your lover or whatever, whoever your person is. This affects them too. Like the decision to come into the studio. Like, I had to think about that carefully and like be like, okay, like how am I going to, suit up and everything? I don't want to come home and affect my kids. Like I want to be, and then I think like, okay, it's just two people, like there's plenty of distance. We're fine. Like we're all in the studio. Come on, Jim. Like it's an acceptable amount of risk at this point. It's fine. Like, it'll be okay. But obviously, like if I just recklessly did whatever I wanted, I think that would piss off the people I live with. Like, and I think it should. So I think a lot of people relate to this. Not you guys though.
Sorry, I was reading something else.
No, I think, I mean, you're not wrong. That's obviously the issue. I mean, that's part of the issue, but I see that as a surface issue.
Right.
Because then, below that is this belief of things aren't being fair in the relationship.
Yeah. Or that he's not taking it seriously.
And then, well, that's one part, but then from his perspective, he's saying, this isn't, you're not treating your family and my family the same. You can do this with your family, but I can't hang out with my family. I mean, you could substitute this problem with which family's Thanksgiving dinner do we go to?
No,
and it's going to be the same problem.
Yeah, there is that flavor because she's like, my dad takes this seriously.
Exactly.
Your dad doesn't.
My family's different. I can associate with my family because they're doing
shooting
this.
With all of you. My dad is very religiously strict about this and like protecting us. Which I think a lot of households relate to right now. Like there might be one person in the house that takes it really seriously and is scared of it. The other person doesn't. And then that mismatch is like a real problem right now. Or families. Like my daughter had her 5th birthday this last week. Or Easter is a great example for a lot of families. Like, should we get together for Easter? And a lot of people are like, yes, it's Easter. And a lot of people are like, no, it doesn't. The day on the calendar doesn't change what our orders are, from our local government that's based on science. Like we should be making the right decision always. And like my daughter's birthday happened day after Easter, or a couple days after Easter, and her grandparents drove in from Pahrump, parked in my driveway, and watched her open up her presents and eat her cake from their car, like with the windows rolled up, like looking through their sunroof, to honor the thing, right? Because everybody's taking this seriously. I like that. Like that is appropriate to me. But when I look at my neighbors and they're not taking it seriously and our kids go to school together and like if the governor blows the whistle and puts all the kids back in school, like that kind of bothers me that like we followed the freaking rules to a T and you didn't. And like, yeah, that makes me mad. What do you do about that? I guess there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay, so I guess we're going to put her relationship issues to the side and let's talk about quarantine.
Okay. You're playing Jim's neurotic bingo at home. Today's episode is just all Jim's problems.
We're going to have to come back to the relationship issues. Honestly,
what's where is fixation on Jim's neurotic bingo?
It's in there, top right.
I think couples counseling is going to be something important for them to work on a lot of these deeper issues.
That's probably true.
On the quarantine thing, here's my take on that.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I'm a social worker.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
I shouldn't be commenting on infectious disease. I don't know what the right course of action is.
Sure.
I don't really think anybody knows.
Right.
I think we're making a best guess.
Sure.
And we just have to go with that. We're not going to know until this is over.
Right.
And then we're going to look back and say, oh, we should have done it this way.
Right.
That would have been a lot better.
That's true.
But from my perspective,
we're definitely going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already doing that.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, I just look at how big of a sacrifice is it for me to play worst case scenario?
Okay.
So like, I honestly don't feel like I've sacrificed a whole lot for this.
Yeah.
I was already working from home.
Right.
I already don't go out a lot.
Right.
Like I've sacrificed going to the gym and I've sacrificed hockey.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
I have not done anything else.
Nothing going on.
I mean, really,
my life has been turned upside down.
I know.
It's like shaking.
I know. And this goes back to what we talked about last week, like survivor's guilt. Like I look at my life next to Jacob's life, and I was like, "Hey,
fine.
Sorry, buddy. I don't know what to tell you."
It's like Jacob in your world. I mean,
also,
imagine...
I'm like, among other things, I'm down to like 30% of my income.
Yeah. Trying to hold on.
Oh no, that's not even true. It's more like 20% probably of household income.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary as hell. And like, if you're going, let me ask you, Jacob, like if you're going through all this sacrifice, it's affecting everybody's lives, and then there's some people that are not doing the stupid thing that we're all supposedly doing. That's
I already
make
agreed
it better.
with you.
Yeah. See, god damn, I'm on a roll. Okay, let me talk to you
It's
about
one
Battlefield
thing.
Earth.
It's still just one thing.
Hold on, let's go back to Battlefield Earth. I just want you to hear me.
Me disagreeing with you on the same thing every time you say it.
Val Kilmer is amazing
mean
in that movie.
Well, he is. Val Kilmer is by far the best part
Might
of that movie.
be his best work.
No, yeah, I mean, because my life has changed fundamentally because of this. And so if and when I see people, like when I go to the store, if I go to the grocery store or to Home Depot, which are my two big excursions these days, I go in, I'm wearing a mask. I'm not doing a whole lot of other stuff. I think we talked about it in the pre-show. I do the hand sanitizer when I get back to the car. If I'm able to only touch things with a single hand, then I do that, and then I use my clean hand to open the car and do all that kind of stuff. Usually that's not the case. Usually I have to use both hands for something. And then I go to the car, I open the passenger side door first, and I have already put my little thing of hand sanitizer there on the seat before I get out of the car.
Right. So you're ready.
And so I don't have to touch anything but the exterior door handle. Then I hand sanitize up and get in the car and go home.
Yep.
And so, yeah, when I go into Home Depot and see people just not wearing a mask, I'm like, asshole, the CDC has said just wear a mask.
Something. Yeah,
do
put
something.
A shirt over your face.
Yeah, put your crip bandana on over your face.
Damn right.
And do your thing.
Represent.
And fine.
Yeah.
This is not a big sacrifice.
Right.
Just putting something over your face. And you're not even doing that.
Right.
I do see those people. I'm like, you're kind of being an asshole right now.
Right.
Yes.
I get that.
And that's your ecosystem, that'll piss you off.
Yeah, and for me, that's okay, small sacrifice. Wear a mask.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Not even a sacrifice.
Right, it isn't. Yeah,
maybe a small inconvenience.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you possible inconvenience.
But that's what the girlfriend's saying. She's saying, really, going shooting with your family was so important right now.
Right.
Like, you can put it off, dude. And if it's like, well, it's my family. Okay, yeah, I get it. I'm not saying never be with your family again.
I am.
Maybe Jacob is.
Don't be with your family.
But yeah, these are small sacrifices. You should be doing them. And I think a lot of people get frustrated at that. And like, yeah, especially I'm having a lot of patients talk about that. Like that's a cause of a lot of people's anxiety because they're like, this person in my life doesn't care. Whether that's their boss or their coworker sitting right across from them, not following the rules, or could be people that you live with sometimes. Multiple families sometimes live in the same general domicile and like they're making it work. And it's tough, man. So I kind of relate to the person in this one. I'm like, yeah, I think your boyfriend's kind of a D-bag. I think that you should shake your fist at him loudly. But her recourse is to not go home. And I'm like, yeah, don't. Stay with your family. Like, if he's going to do this stuff and, like, you disapprove of that and you don't think that that's consistent with the guidelines and you don't want to personally be at risk, stay with your family, man. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. And shake your fist at your boyfriend.
Yeah. There you go.
Violently. I
don't know. I think... I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know anything about...
Great show, everybody.
This, yeah. But I just... I'm kind of at the perspective that...
That's why we have guidelines.
Feel like... No, I agree. I get it. But I also kind of feel like until there is a vaccine, we're all going to get it at some point. Like, in my mind, I believe I'm probably going to get it at some point, but I'm hoping to get it later.
Of course, that's an irrational thought.
Because you just got life coached.
Yeah, the majority of people, just given like the data and how it goes, like even if it had just gone unchecked, the majority of people still would not have gotten it.
Not the majority.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not. Think about it, man. Like you're thinking like chicken pox, like you want to go expose yourself to it to get it out of the way.
No. That's what I'm saying.
No.
But it like unchecked, the projection was something like 40%
of the world or something.
Oh, really?
Was going to get it. I think. I might be wrong about that number, but I'm pretty sure it was under 50%.
It's highly contagious, but like at the end of the
day,
highly
like 40% of the population getting something is a lot of people.
Yeah,
I mean that's like 1.5 of us in this room.
Yeah,
I hope it's not me.
I hope it's Jim.
Oh, shit. I'm the only one wearing a mask.
The only thing that would make me truly happy out of all this is if Jim still gets it.
Jim gets it, nobody else.
The mask keeps the virus contained within you.
Right. I'm wearing this to protect you guys.
Thank
so
you,
your
Jim.
point, though, is like maybe the reaction is bigger than it needs to be because part of you has sort of accepted this rather than trying to avoid it.
I guess it's kind of like, for me, like the whole quarantine thing, wearing the mask, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's to relieve the medical profession as much as we possibly can.
Yeah,
if it's spread out for as long as it can possibly be, then it provides relief. But
you keep in hospital beds available.
Right.
That's it. That makes sense. And I do believe that's what this is all about. And there are people that have a deep fear of it. Like for me personally, I don't have a fear that I will get it, become sick, and die. Like, that's not my healthcare anxiety or my trauma.
Yeah, I don't want Jim to die from it.
No.
I do want Jim to feel like absolute garbage for about 2 weeks.
Thanks, bud. I take that. No, I'll take that as a win.
That's because that would just be would be the greatest joy in my life.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, just to see, but I'm still gonna call into the show.
Yeah.
How much would it take to kill him and then just back
that up just a little bit? Dog shit 2 weeks. Dog shit 2 weeks. My only fear is spreading it, like to the people that I care about. Like, and that's my biggest fear. Like my.
And I want to be clear. I'm not wishing that Jim's family gets this.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're I just want Jim to get it.
Just Jim. That's fine. Just kick him in the balls. Let it happen. That's fine. But no, I see the point. Like that's what's scary about this damn thing, and that's why we have guidelines. I think generally people should obey the guidelines, and I think it's selfish and frustrating when somebody's like, "Oh, well, we don't have to. Our family's special." Why? Why is your family special? Oh, we're special because thing. Like I can justify coming to the studio to do pod therapy, even though it's not an essential activity in my life, because it's part of mental health. I feel that it's part of my vocation. It's what we do. I want to do it well, and I feel that I can do it better by being here than being in studio. I can take lots of precautions to minimize the risk, and it's something that people literally finance. Like they pay us to help do this and like hopefully to spread a message. So I feel an obligation that this is something we should be doing well. So like, that's different than going shooting with your buddies or like your family or like, going out to dinner or whatever, like spending, Easter together. I just feel like you should be inconvenienced right now and you should avoid those things. Going shooting, that's dumb. And generally I think going shooting is dumb. Maybe I'm biased anyway, but.
You ever gone shooting?
I have. I've gone shooting once.
Have you? No,
I shot a cactus.
Yeah. I've done skeet
shooting. It was coming right at me.
It was coming right at me. That thing was crazy. It exploded. Yeah, I've shot a shotgun in the desert. I've gone shooting like in a range, and so I've shot like pistols and stuff. I'm terrible.
Not as fun.
No,
it's more fun to just go out in the middle of the desert
and just fire. Yeah. So like I did that. I fired like a Magnum and I fired a shotgun. And that Magnum, it was crazy because this thing is like hand cannon, and like when I fired the thing. I have no idea what I hit, but I nowhere near
your face.
Yeah, the recoil. Yeah, all that I noticed was recoil and shock. I have no idea where that bullet went. There was no dust, nothing, nowhere. I just hope it didn't go through the mountain and kill somebody.
It's almost landed.
Yeah. Shotgun was a lot easier. Like just point and click. There he goes. Whatever problem is over there, it's gone. So. Anyway, to the writer, I think that you should break up with him and go find a new boyfriend who follows the rules.
Shoot a cactus.
And shoot a cactus. Yeah, ditch this loser.
But
he's trying to get
ultimately,
killed.
Underlying issues.
Most attractive thing you can do right now is follow coronavirus guidelines. That's what the ladies like. Do that, gentlemen. Get you a date.
Okay, well, that's the end of our show.
Thank God.
Forever.
We've made it. Jacob has survived another Sunday.
I'm about to go cough on Jim.
No. I'm going to run out of here as soon as the bell rings. That door's been open the whole time?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of nice.
There's nobody here.
Yeah.
Well, good. There's less humans.
We're the only people using this building.
Oh. Well, that's actually disquieting because that means the rest of them know something I don't. You guys have like a coronavirus outbreak in this building?
Yeah, I just cough on everybody that comes in.
Just stand there at the door. We want to take a second to pay tribute to a great man, a great friend to the show, and a very long-term, if not original, he's one of the originals.
Yeah.
One of the original THERAPRODUCERs of the show, David Datascoop. Violon. He needed to cut it back for a while, so took a break from the whole THERAPRODUCER thing. But definitely we wanted to reflect on the fact that he has been such a partner for us this whole time. Huge partner. Has been on the show. Has dared to reveal his own truth and share with us, the uplifting and true stories of what his life has been like. And has just been a huge advocate for mental health this whole time, man. So, David, we love you, man. We're supporting you through this with you and just so grateful, man. You've always been with us to make the show possible. And so super duper grateful. And of course, just looking forward to continuing to, partner together, man, but grateful for all you've done for us. So definitely wanted to say that word of respect and just love you, man.
Yes,
and we're sending you an
David.
awesome mug. We have a mug. When this quarantine crap's over and we can promise that it's germ-free, we're going to send you a mug. But right now I'm scared to send anybody anything because I wouldn't want anything in the mail. Anything I get in the mail, I'll leave outside.
Well, nothing would survive.
Hours. What do you mean? The virus?
Well, you put it in the mail today. When are they going to get it?
You don't cover items you send people with auger? I do.
Okay. Anyway, it's you. Okay, you just said you would leave a package set for 24 hours.
Outside.
How long do you think it's going to take to be delivered?
Less than 24 hours?
You think so? You think somebody's going to get a package in less than 24 hours?
If you send something
You're
like
gonna
across
overnight
state
it?
lines? Well, that's true. Well, no. It's not about what's inside the box. It's about the guy who touched the box to put it down.
Oh, okay. That's not what it sounded like the first time. You
Yeah.
sound like you didn't want to send something.
I don't want to touch a box
Gotcha.
for 24 hours. I
All
just
right.
leave stuff,
Okay.
or I kick it over to the garage and I just leave it in there to air out for 24 hours.
Fair enough.
The point, David, is that we like you.
Yes. Thank you, David. That's what we're trying to say.
There was a roundabout point in there.
I suddenly like you less.
We like you.
After having listened to that for a few minutes.
That's fair. That's a fair.
And we got a new THERAPOD. Carolyn Albert. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you for
Carolyn.
your contribution. Yes. Jim, did you send a tweet?
No, to who? About what?
Our new
to
THERAPOD?
recognize our THERAPOD? No, I haven't. I will.
Are you just not doing that anymore?
I've been booked. I've been slammed. I don't even look at our Twitter till the end of the night.
Okay. I know that's bullshit.
What do you know that's bullshit?
Because you post on your own personal Twitter.
Well, of course. There's always time for that.
What do you think you slammed with?
I don't have time for Pod Therapy Twitter. I'm too busy yelling at Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz for being
I did
idiots.
see that. I did see that.
Oh, they're so stupid.
I'm fine with them being yelled at, actually.
Oh, God, I'm
perfectly happy
angry.
with them being yelled at.
Yeah, we should have just ranted about that for an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome, Carolyn. And also, update on the plant thing. I think my argument is that Ulysses S. Plant was the best, but then I realized the person, I think it was Christine, or I don't even remember what her name is now. It blanked on it. Heather? Was it Heather or Christine?
Who owns the plant?
Heather. She's Canadian, so Ulysses S. Plant would have no meaning to her. She wouldn't care.
Ooh.
Yeah. See, I'm considerate.
All right. So, Therapals, we want Canadian references.
Yeah, we
only.
need Canadian. Somebody said Robert Plant.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid.
He's English.
Yeah, he's English, but that's
close
good.
enough. Canadians are diet English.
different country.
They both got the Queen on their currency,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they're not backing down from that.
Yeah.
They're part of the Commonwealth. So anyway, also update about the Pod Therapy support group. Keep your eyes open for that. We've been pretty good about doing it about every 2 weeks. And so we're coming back around to it again. And we posted all over our social media. We're trying not to say what day and time it will be on the show because we try to align it with when Paul's not on Twitch. Which is getting more and more difficult. Yeah. He'll cook and he's doing all stuff. I'm like, Paul, stop. I have a support group I'm trying to run. So, yeah, keep your eyes open to social media. We will let you know when that's going to come. And definitely want to invite everybody to be a part of that. And we want to thank our Elite 8 mysterious and shrouded bosses, the Illuminati members of our fan club, the THERAPRODUCERs. Thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury, David Data Scoop, Violon, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Dawn, and ex officio board members Ellie O'Dare and Crazy Banana Scoop. If you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited, and
why wouldn't you?
And enjoy our spontaneous side projects, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Thank you all for supporting mental health. That's all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening this episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting that link we provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys, and at patreon.com/therapy.
If you want to submit a question to the show, ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Val Travolta.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
It's a very deep cough you got there, buddy. You should get that checked out.